How much does money in your pocket mean to you? Would higher wages be enough to win your vote? And would you believe any politician that's offering that? Well, this week, we're going to look at what the parties are promising to make you better off. Money is an emotional thing, especially when things are tight. And if you're a millennial, it's definitely tough. Wages are still lower for people in their 30s than they were 10 years ago.
Energy would be £49 per month. Home insurance, £5 per month. It leaves you with nothing, it leaves you not being able to do absolutely anything. It leaves you with no money for yourself.
And a lot of that has to do with the economy. The economy is essentially people and businesses spending money and interacting with each other. The more productive activity that happens, the more the economy grows, the more tax the government receives. That gives it more ability to spend money on what it thinks the public wants, whether that be the NHS, public services, or infrastructure. But decisions politicians make can also have a negative effect on the economy. It's all a balancing act. Okay, so that seems straightforward and actually pretty logical. But here's the thing, it's totally not, because our economy is run by humans, and we are pretty irrational. We make economic decisions emotionally.
What you might think would be a straightforward, logical choice isn't necessarily the case. Emotions are important, but we should never underestimate them.
This is Dr. Weinberg, who's an expert in all the strange reasons behind how we vote.
You get into the polling booth and you're thinking, well, I've got a pretty good idea. And you've probably been weighing up, well, what's good for me? What's good for my family? Maybe what's good for my community? And so that's where your gut feelings about a whole host of things will come into play.
There's this amazing stat. In a poll back in 2017, nearly 2/3 of Brexit voters said they thought significant damage to the economy was a price worth paying for leaving the EU. Okay, so this election is taking us by surprise because the parties are in agreement on something, and that is spending. The two big parties are offering some of the most radical spending policies in decades.
This is Ben, our economics expert, who loves just dreamily thinking of the economy.
This is the election where every party is pledging to spend more. Labour especially, they want to spend more, they're going to borrow more, they're going to put taxes up. The Conservatives are going to spend more, but they're not going to tax more. And they say that Labour's plans are so reckless that they would wreck the economy. The Liberal Democrats, they also want to spend more, they also want to borrow more, they also want to tax more, but they're saying that only they are now the party of fiscal responsibility. The SNP, well, they want Scottish independence because they think that's the only way they can get the balance of taxes and spending that the Scottish people want and need.
So the parties are promising the world with our economy. I wonder if the Tories will spend on buses. To actually understand how we got to all these promises, we need to go back to the 2007 financial crash.
It began in the USA with banks lending too much money to people who couldn't afford to pay it back, which caused them to go bust. Because American banks are so big and so linked to the rest of the world, this caused the global financial system to crash, and the UK felt the effect big time.
Our banks panicked. In fact, you know what? Everyone panicked. Banks asked for emergency funding, and suddenly huge crowds of people started lining up to drain their accounts.
Nobody's given an absolute guarantee that the money is safe in this bank.
The Labour government under Gordon Brown had to lend the banks billions of pounds to stop them from going under, and with them, our whole economy. Side note, remember this Gordon classic?
The first point of recapitalisation was to save banks that would otherwise have collapsed. And we not only saved the world, saved the banks and saved the banks.
Okay, so if we move to 2010 now, Lady Gaga's wearing meat dresses and the Conservatives have taken over from Labour.
Of course, it was the right honourable gentleman who left that note. There is no money left after the last.
Who doesn't love some apocalyptic banter? So with our economy in bad shape, the government wasn't getting any money in and had gone into debt to pay for the crash. The Conservatives' plan to get a handle on the mounting national debt was simple. Just stop spending. So cuts to things like police, roads and benefits. This approach had a name: austerity, also known as being tight.
The Conservatives sold austerity as a virtue. They said that the UK government was like a big UK household, and that a household has to have its incomings and its outgoings totally balanced.
To lead people through those difficult decisions so that together we can reach better times ahead.
But Labour and a number of independent economists said this was a big mistake because it was the wrong analogy, that a household is not the same as a national government, and that cutting too far and too fast on state expenditure risked undermining the overall economy.
So far, this has all been pretty abstract, but for many, the consequences of the economy not working can be devastating. Our reporter Ed Thomas has been looking at stories of people who just don't have enough.
Tyler, it says.
Tyler's 5.
And who's Tyler?
Me.
And lives with his mum.
Let me turn this off. Don't want to waste too much batteries.
What are you doing?
I don't like losing the pennies because my mum needs them to buy important stuff like bread, milk and, well, just other important stuff.
If I told him that we have to watch the pennies, I don't have to tell him that there's nothing there.
With wages and benefits, some months she has £1,140. After rent, bills and debts, she's left with around £13 a day.
He got very ill at one point because we couldn't really afford the heating. We couldn't afford the bus to school. His shoes were getting knackered, his pants were too small for him.
So the age of austerity is over, and everyone's promising to make it rain. So with Labour promising to spend big, plus a reputation for doing that in the past, they're a shoo-in for everyone's economic vote in this election, right? Nope, because we found something really surprising. Hello, Megan.
What this one poll suggests is really interesting. Labour's economic policies tend to go down really well with people. Take the increasing of income tax for the rich, nearly 2/3 of people support that, and more than half support nationalising the railways.
So why aren't they doing better in the polls?
I mean, it could be down to the fact that people like Labour's policies, but they just don't trust the party with the economy. Again, this same poll suggests 34% trust Boris Johnson with the economy, only 16% trust Jeremy Corbyn.
Thanks, Megan. This time, Labour are promising some of the most radical policies we've ever seen. Yep, nationalisation. That's when privately owned companies or industries, like the railways, get taken over by the government or become publicly owned. And if we go back to the 1970s, Labour were big fans. Big chunks of the UK economy were state-owned, but they've been sold off over the years by mostly Conservative governments.
From Malaysia to Mexico, from Sri Lanka to Singapore, privatisation is on the move.
Nationalisation became a dirty word, but it's something Jeremy Corbyn has always wanted to bring back.
We are proposing public ownership of what are obvious monopolies.
He's better on the auto cue now too.
Investing in our young people. And, strong message here,
You're not meant to say that bit.
But back to emotion. Do people really believe they'll deliver it?
And many others think nationalisation just won't work economically.
That's why the Conservatives have had so much joy attacking them.
We're funding a huge programme of investment in our roads, in telecoms, gigabit broadband, unlike the crazed communist scheme that was outlined earlier on.
Okay, the thing to remember is we live in extraordinary times. The effect from that 2007 crash, and now Brexit, are massive. Lots of people feel our system doesn't work for them, and some economists agree the system is flawed. And as we can see from political parties breaking with their traditions, they too are reflecting on how things work. But one thing we do know, how you vote will have a big effect on your wallet. Until next time, see ya!